Okay, good day everyone. This is Attorney Lyndon Masserin, and I am your professor host for this course. The course will be the Law on Sales. This is the first installment of our course, and so welcome everyone. So we now proceed immediately by the definition of what a contract of sale is. So in a contract of sale, one of the contracting parties obligates himself to transfer the ownership of and to deliver a determinate thing. And this is the seller. And the other, who is the buyer, to pay therefore a price certain in money or its equivalent. So there are two parties. One who agrees to transfer the ownership and deliver it to the buyer. And the subject matter is a determinate thing. And the other party, who is the buyer, now pays the price certain in money or its equivalent. So a contract of sale may be absolute, meaning there would be immediate transfer of ownership and without any condition. Or it could be subject to conditions, and that would be conditional contract of sale. The transfer of ownership would only be done or performed upon the completion or fulfillment of the conditions. So we'll now distinguish contract of sale from contract to sell. A contract to sell happens when the owner of the property authorizes someone to sell his property, or when the owner of the property agrees that he will part his property to someone upon certain conditions. No? So these are the distinctions. In a contract of sale, it is an absolute contract, except when it's subject to conditions. No? But in contract of sale, it is a conditional contract, and that is to sell the property, or acceptance or payment of money will only result to, the transfer of ownership of the property will only be made if the other party will pay or make his full payment. The contract of sale is a real obligation. Different types of obligations are real or personal. But here in the contract to sell, it is personal obligation, meaning it's personal to the other party, who is the agent or the proposed vendee, because he's not a vendee yet. So it's personal to him because he has something to do. In a contract of sale, title passes to the buyer upon the delivery of the thing, but to sell, the ownership is reserved in the name of the seller and will only pass to the buyer upon payment of the full price. Yeah. In a contract of sale, non-payment of the price is a negative resolutory condition, meaning it will result to breach. Okay. But in contract to sell, full payment is a positive suspensive condition, and the failure of which is not a breach. So here there's a breach, but in a contract to sell, there's no breach if the party will not pay or deliver his payment. So failure to deliver the money in a contract to sell only prevents the obligation of the vendor to convey title of the property. So meaning the vendor or the owner of the property will not transfer the name of the, will not transfer the name of the property to the buyer because there's no payment yet. But there's no breach. Then in case of fraud or breach or non-payment or non-fulfillment of any provisions in the agreement or the contract, the remedies available in a contract of sale are the following: specific performance, rescission, and damages. So damages, rescission is like cancellation of the contract that results to the restoration of things, you know? The giving back of the property and the giving back of the money to the buyer. But in a contract to sell, the remedies available are only resolution, meaning to resolve or reform the contract, plus damages. No? Okay, those are the distinctions. Now we go to the elements of a contract of sale. And number one is the consent of the parties. So once the seller and the buyer would agree, there is already perfection of the contract of sale. So that's the first element, the consent of the contracting parties. Then there should be a subject matter, which is determinate. Determinate is distinguished from generic. Here, determinate is identified by its individuality, meaning it is unique on its own, and you can distinguish it from other objects. And the third element is that there should be a price or consideration which is certain in money or its equivalent. No? And there are different stages in a contract of sale. The first stage would be negotiation. This is the point or the moment in time where the seller and the buyer will haggle for the price or agree on the specific terms and conditions of the sale. Once they agree on the conditions or the consideration or the price, then there is already perfection of the contract. So perfection of the contract is also named as the birth of the contract. There is already consent between the parties. So again, the parties in the contract of sale are the buyer and the seller. Then once the buyer will deliver his payment or the money to the seller, and the seller, on the other hand, delivers his obligation, which is a delivery of the thing to the buyer and transfer its ownership to the buyer, then there is already consummation of the contract. So consummation of the contract is also termed as the termination of the contract of sale. So again, the obligations created in a contract of sale there are two, and these are real obligations, which are giving, the giving of things. So these are the characteristics in a contract of sale. Nominate, because it has a special designated name by the law. It is provided for in the law. It is a contract of sale. Principal, because it does not require the need for another contract to stand, meaning it can stand by itself and it's not dependent on any other contract. Consensual, in the sense that it is perfected by the mere consent of the parties. Bilateral and reciprocal, they're the same. Both parties are bound to deliver or reciprocally obliged to perform. Onerous, in the sense that this burdensome on the part of the seller to deliver his or to give up or surrender the thing, while the part of the buyer is also burdensome to deliver the money. commutative, and title, and not a mode. Okay. Okay, this time we will distinguish contract of sale from other contracts like donation, barter, and contract for piece of work. First, donation against sale. Donation is gratuitous on the part of the donee, meaning he's not paying any money, but onerous on the part of the donor because he's giving up his property. Then sale is purely onerous on both parties. While donation is a formal contract, meaning it cannot be perfected. This is as to perfection. Now, donation cannot be perfected without a written contract, which the donee will show or manifests his acceptance of the property, because donation requires the acceptance of the donee. But in sale, it is a consensual contract, meaning it is perfected by the mere consent of the parties. There's no need or does not require a written contract or written agreement to perfect the contract. Donation is governed by the law on donation, while sale is governed by the law on sale. On the other hand, barter versus sale. Barter, the consideration is the giving of a thing. So while in sale, it's the giving of the money. Now, as far as the laws governing the two contracts, in barter, it is governed by the law on sales, which is a species of or a genus of sale. No? But sale is governed by the law on sales. Okay. Barter, the consideration will also consist partly in money. This is partly, not party, and partly by thing. But what would determine if it's a barter or a sale depends upon the intention of the parties. So because a sale there could be a sale whereby part of the consideration is the giving of a thing. No? So if the intention is not clear here, because it requires the intention of the parties. But if the intention is not clear, meaning it's not stated that it is a barter, then we have to look into the value of the thing. This happens, by the way, when the barter, when the other party will trade in another thing plus money. Let's say, for instance, you're going to buy a car, but your money is not enough, so you will trade in your old car. Yeah? So you're buying a new car, like a brand new Fortuner, and you're trading in your old Fortuner. So the value of your old Fortuner is 500,000 pesos. And the value of the new Fortuner is 1.5 million pesos. So meaning there is money still to be paid by the buyer, which is 1 million pesos. No? The value of the old Fortuner is 500,000, and the money or price consideration is 1 million. So since the value of the price is more than the value of the thing, then it falls here. It's sales, no? It would be sale. But if the value of the thing is more than the value of the money, then it is a barter. So meaning if I have an old Fortuner, but my Fortuner is still 2 years old, so it's worth 1 million pesos, and comes in a new model, which is now a 2001 model, and it's now let's say 1.6 million pesos. Now the trade-in value of my old Fortuner is 1 million, so I am still going to pay 600,000 pesos. And there is no intent, the intention is not clear whether it's a barter or sale. So if that happens, the value of the thing is more than the value of money, 1 million as compared to 600,000, the thing is what my old Fortuner is valued at 1 million. So it falls here in barter. Okay. If the value of the thing is more than the value of money, then it's barter. Then if the value of the thing is equal or less than the amount of money, then it is a sale. So now we will distinguish a sale from a contract piece of work. A contract piece of work are where goods are to be manufactured specially for a customer and upon special order and not for general market. So this happens when you buy like furniture and you want your furniture to be to have carvings and the cloth should be all white like that. No? So it's a customized piece of work. In a contract of sale, however, the delivery of the article which the vendor in the ordinary course of business manufactures or procures for the general market, meaning it's not customized. No? It's for anyone who wants to buy, okay, go. Now in a contract for piece of work, the essence is service, while in the sale, it is the object. No? So jurisprudence, meaning decisions of the Supreme Court. Number one, in a contract piece of work requires the timing test. This is stated in Article 1467. Whether the thing transferred would have never existed, but because there was an order, so it now exists. And the other one is the habituality test. If the manufacturer engages in activity with need to employ extraordinary skills and equipment. So this is the habituality test. Then the nature of the object test, meaning that each product's nature of execution differs from the others. No? Okay. Then we now distinguish a contract of sale from a contract to sell. This one is the contract to sell or agency to sell. No? So in agency to sell, the agent is not obliged to pay for the price, but merely obliged to deliver the price received from the buyer. So he's only a representative of the seller. So he's the agent. But in sale, the buyer pays the price of object directly to the seller. In agency to sell, the principal remains the owner, even if the object delivered has been delivered to the agent. So meaning there is the preservation of the ownership of the thing. But in sale, when the buyer receives the thing, he then becomes the owner of the thing. This one refers to the giving of the thing to the agent. So the agent does not own the thing yet. Okay. In an agency to sell, the agent assumes no risk liability as long as it's within his authority. But the contract of sale, there is already risk or liability on the part of the seller because he has warrants, no, implied warrants or the warranties that he promised to the buyer. And then in agency to sell, it may be revoked unilaterally because fiduciary, and even if revoked without grounds. No, it can be revoked by the seller. In sale, it is not. It cannot be unilaterally revoked by the seller. In a contract of agency or agency to sell, the agent is not allowed to profit, while in a contract to sell, the seller makes a profit. And then there is personal contract, and the other one is a real contract. Next, we will distinguish sale from dación in payment or dación en pago. Dación en pago. Dación en pago happens when there is an old obligation or debt. Let's say a party owes you, and then he has no money to pay. Instead of giving money, he now delivers a thing to you, and which you agree to accept. No, so there's an old obligation. Then instead of paying money, the debtor now gives you a thing. That's dación in pago or dación in payment. So here, the distinctions clearly that there is a pre-existing obligation or credit, no, on the part of the debtor. But in sale, there is no pre-existing credit or pre-existing obligation. Dación in payment, the obligations are extinguished, or the obligation is extinguished, obligation to pay. But in sale, there is a creation of obligations. Okay. So here, this is as to obligations. Dación in payment extinguishes obligations, but in sale, it creates obligations. Okay. As to consideration, the debtor's consideration in dación in payment is the extinguishment of the debt. And the creditor's consideration is the acquisition of the object offered in lieu of the original credit. But in sale, the consideration of the seller is the price, while in consideration of the buyer is the acquisition of the object. Okay. There are more. So in dación en pago, there's less freedom in determining the price because you are limited to the amount of the obligation. But in sale, there is greater freedom in determining the price. In dación en pago, payment is received by the debtor before the contract is perfected. Yeah, because there's already the obligation when they contracted a loan from the lender, Huam Kwarta. So you already received payment of the price or payment of the thing. Then you decided to pay by way of delivery of the object. So there is already payment received by the debtor. But in the case of contract of sale, the buyer still has to pay the price. Okay. So there's no delivery of money yet. Now we will distinguish contract of lease from contract of sale. So lease happens when you have the right to occupy the property which is owned by another, and there's payment, like monthly rent. Okay, lease. Use of a thing is for a specified period only with an obligation to return. Okay, because the lease could be for a period of 6 months, period of 1 year, or a period of 5 years. It depends upon the agreement of parties. But in contract of sale, the obligation is absolutely involves the transfer of ownership of the thing. So there's no returning, no return. So as to the consideration, it is in the contract of lease, it is for the rent, for the use of the thing, while in sale, the consideration is for the payment of the thing or the price of the thing. In a contract of lease, the owner, the property, the lessor need not be the owner of the thing. No? It could be another lessee, no? and then making a sublease to another leasee. So the lessor of the property need not be the owner. But in sale, the seller should be the owner because it requires that he transfer the ownership to the buyer. And we have another kind of contract which is a lease, but there is an option to buy. In this kind of a contract, this is really a contract of sale, but only designated as a lease, as a name, only as a name. In actuality, a lease with option to buy is a contract of sale by installments. It's very common nowadays when you buy a what do you call that kind of vehicle, the Jeep. Yeah, the Jeep, because it's very expensive. Your installments of 50,000 a month would be designated as rent to own. Jeep. So who can be parties in a contract of sale? Can anyone be a party in a contract of sale? The answer is no. As a general rule, all persons who are authorized in the Civil Code to obligate themselves may enter into a contract of sale, meaning only those who are legally capacitated to give consent or legally capable of obligating themselves, but not minors, not insane, not demented persons, or deaf mutes who don't know how to write. Because if these parties will enter into a contract of sale, then the contracts are voidable, meaning it's subject to annulment or ratification in order to be valid. Here, the annulment, that is already to cancel the contract. So other persons who are disqualified includes person who is under a state of drunkenness, maybe by alcohol or too much medicine intake, when person under hypnotic spell, or where necessaries are those sold and delivered to a minor or other person without capacity to act, he must pay a reasonable price therefore. So in this kind of contract, it can be valid because minors are allowed to avail in a contract of sale if the subject matter are necessaries. So what are necessaries? These are objects which, according to the law, are necessities in the life of a minor. So these are the following: shelter, education, clothing, and food. So if a minor comes into your, if you are offering a boarding house, so comes into the boarding house and would enter into a contract of lease as a lessor for a boarding room, can he do that? Can a minor does that? The answer is yes, because it falls under necessaries. Board, lodging falls under shelter, no? Especially if he is going to use the boarding or lodging house for his going to school or education because it's near the school. On the other hand, spouses may, without the consent of the other spouse, enter into sales transactions in the regular pursuit of their profession, vocation, or trade. No? So either of the spouse can enter into a contract of sale, unless the subject matter is co-owned by the parties, the other spouse, meaning they are uh, the subject matter is a community, meaning it is part of the absolute community of the husband and the wife. So it requires consent. But if the property, if the spouse here, if the wife, like say she's going to buy a car, she can do it on her own without the consent of the husband. No? As long as she has the money. Okay. Now in Article 1490 in the Civil Code, it says that the husband and the wife cannot sell property to each other. So this is not the limitation. Can the husband and the wife sell property to each other? The answer is no. But there are exceptions. No? Number one, when there is already separation of property, when there's a separation of property agreed before the marriage. So these are marriage settlements. This is the pre or antenuptial agreements, done before marriage. Or when there is a judicial separation of property under Article 191. This is of property, not or. When there has been a judicial separation of property brought by annulment of marriage or declaration of legal separation. These are all judicial proceedings. So the prohibition stated in Article 1490 of the Civil Code, by the way, sales is under the Civil Code, is also applicable to a common law spouse or to common law spouses, meaning the man and the woman are living together without the benefit of marriage. So they are living together, live in. That's what you call common law spouses. They're governed under the common law. So there are also other trust relationships which are governed, which are prohibited to make a sale under Article 1491. These persons are prohibited to enter into a contract with the properties that they are managing or administering. Like the guardian. The guardian is prohibited to buy the property of the ward. The ward meaning guardian is somebody who is acting as the parent of a minor child, who is the ward. No? So if the ward has property, because the parents are already dead, and now the guardian acting as parent, he cannot buy the property of the ward. As well as the agent in a contract of sale cannot buy the property of the seller. And executors and administrators of estate of the deceased, no? Itong namatay. When a person is dead or deceased, his property could be managed by an executor. Executor is somebody who is appointed by the deceased person during his lifetime while he was still alive. What administrator, these are persons who manage the property of the deceased person, but this person is appointed by the court, administrator. No? So direct or indirect, these persons cannot purchase. No? So it's clear here that the parties prohibited from acquiring the property. So executor and administrator cannot directly or indirectly buy the property of the deceased or the estate, as well as the agent cannot buy the property of the principal. Okay. However, it may be ratified since only private wrong is involved. So meaning if the heirs in a estate proceeding knew that the executor or the administrator bought the property, then they can ratify. Or in a contract of to sell, where the principal knew that the agent is the one paying for the property, then he can ratify, meaning the seller can ratify or the principal. Or the ward can also ratify when he knew that his guardian was the one buying when he reaches the age of majority. Okay, other persons who are prohibited from buying or purchasing properties, public officers and employees of officers of the court. They cannot, it cannot be ratified, no? So these persons are the one administering the property of the state meaning the Philippine government. So the president, for instance, he cannot buy properties owned by the Philippine government. He is prohibited. Any public officer for that matter or employees of the government. Usually, if there's a sale involving government properties, these are made through public biddings. No? So officers of the court cannot acquire properties which are under litigation, meaning which is under under court proceedings. Na ay nagkinihaay, no? So when that happens, it is null and void because these contracts cannot be ratified since it involves public wrong. And the requisites for prohibition applies to attorneys. Oh my God. So lawyers cannot buy when this specific lawyer is the one who is the counsel of the parties, one of the parties in the court case or court proceedings. No? So there's this existence of attorney-client relationship and the property is subject in the litigation, which is handled by the lawyer. So the lawyer is prohibited. But if another lawyer who is unknown or unrelated to the client, then he can buy as long as the court will allow and the other party will allow, the other adverse party, meaning ang kontra. But there's an exception on the part of lawyers. They are not prohibited as long as the property was acquired as part of the contingent fee, meaning there's no payment on the part of the client did not pay the professional fee of the lawyer, and instead of paying money, they have arranged or agreed that the property, which is the object of the case, which is the property involved in the litigation, will be a part of the property will be given as lawyer's fee, legal fee, and that is allowed. Only happens upon final judgment. Okay. Okay. The prohibitions in Article 1491 or 1490, these are applicable to sales in legal redemption, compromises, and renunciations. So legal redemptions, we will discuss that further. No? So the legal status of the contract in case the guardian buys from the property of the ward or executor, public officers, it's void. But it is voidable in the civil code when it pertains to budget agent, valid only if the principal give his consent or ratifies the contract. Okay, those are the parties who are prohibited to enter into a contract. Yeah? Agents, principal, agents to principal, and guardians to wards, to court administrators, officers of the state or the government, employees, and so on and so forth. Now let's discuss subject matter. What should be the requisite in order that subject matter can be an object in a contract of sale? So the first requisite is that the thing should be possible. You know? And when it's possible, meaning it is existing, whether future or contingent, because made to order sale, the thing is not yet existing. It has to be produced, no? Made to order, man. So it happens in the future, or contingent on the part of the lawyer, Okay, I will, the part of the, yeah. So whether the subject is of a type and nature that exists or could be to exist to allow the seller reasonable certainty of being able to comply with his obligations. So the thing must be possible. Do you know what are impossible things which cannot be subject matter of a sale? So these are the illegal, illegal, or those things which can never exist, inexistent. Say for instance, I will sell to you the moon. Okay, it is existent, but cannot happen. It's improbable that I can deliver to you the moon. Let's say I would sell it to you for only 500 pesos. Is that possible? No, it's not. I cannot deliver the thing to you. Okay, okay, another requisite for thing, it must be licit or legitimate. It must be legal and not outside the commerce of man. So what are things which are outside the commerce of man? These are public things, no? Owned by the public. Like for instance, streets, roads, bridges, uh, plaza. But because if the thing is illicit, then the contract is void. Contract of sale is void. You want to buy 5,000 pesos, very cheap, Mactan Bridge. I will sell to you for 5,000 pesos. Is that allowed? Or will you buy Mactan Bridge for that amount of money, 5,000 pesos? The answer is no, because I have no authority to sell because it is beyond the commerce of men. That thing is outside the commerce of men. Third requisite, and the last, the thing should be determinate or determinable, meaning it is particularly designated or physically segregated from all others of the same class. So it is physically segregated from the other. So rice, how about rice? Rice is generic. But if you say that I will sell to you 1,000 sacks of rice, which is now in my truck, loaded on my truck, so it's physically segregated from all of the others. And determinable, meaning the thing is capable of being determinate on without the necessity of new further contract. So determinate or determinable. That's the thing. Then rights must be transferable. So this exclude future inheritance, because future inheritance cannot be an object in a contract of sale. Why? Because the heir's title over the property is still inchoate, meaning it is not ripe, it does not ripen into full ownership. No? While his father and mother are still alive, then the heir cannot or uh, has no ownership or right to sell the properties owned by his parents. Then, except for service, because there is no transfer of right of service, no? All right. Now, if there is a sale of mere hope, like sale of lottery tickets, that is imcho spe. You are selling mere hope or expectancy that the thing will come to existence. So, is it valid? Yes, that is a valid sale. But if you are but if the sale is of an expected thing, then that is imchus res spirate. meaning you are expecting a thing. You're paying something which you expect. Okay. So it could be an offspring of a carabao or a cow or any animal for that matter. So it's still in the womb of the mother, but you expect it to come out in the future. So that falls under Imptus Re Spirati. That kind of sale is valid. Then more distinctions from Imptu Spirate and from Imptu Re, Imptu Re Spirate from Imptu Spe. In Imptu Re Spirate, the sale is subject to the condition that the thing will exist. If it does not, if does not, there is no contract. No? So if the carabao, the baby carabao or the calf will comes after coming out from the womb is dead or it's already there's stillbirth, then there's no contract. But in Imptu Spe, the sale is effective even if the thing does not come into existence unless it is a vain hope. So the sale is still valid even if the number or the ticket does not win the lottery. The buyer of the lottery ticket cannot return the ticket and ask for a refund. Hey, I'm going to ask for a refund because I did not win. No, because it is already a valid sale. Unless it is a vain hope. When does vain hope happens? When the lottery ticket has already elapsed, no? You bought a ticket which is already drawn, draw. So in that case, it's vain hope. It will not come into existence. Okay. Then in Imptu Re Spirate, uncertainty is with regard to the quantity and the quality of the thing and not the existence of the thing. We do not know if the carabao will be healthy or not. But in the Imptu Spe, the uncertainty is with regard to the existence of the thing. If it will exist in the future. Then the last distinction in Imptu Re Spirate, object is a future thing, while in Imptu Spe, object is a present thing, which is the hope or expectancy. So here the object is the hope or the expectancy, while in Imptu Re Spirate, the object is the future thing. Okay, note that the quantity of subject matter is not essential for perfection, but must determine nature and quality of the subject matter. Seller need not be the owner of the subject matter at the time of perfection. Sufficient that he is the owner at the time of delivery, exception, or foreclosure sale. So this pertains to the seller. No? In a contract of sale, the seller need not be the owner of the subject matter at the time of perfection of the sale. So when is ownership necessary? Upon the delivery of the sale, or upon delivery of the sale. Of course, except for foreclosure sale, because the one who is selling here is the banks, no? The banks or the own shops. So they're the ones selling. So they are not the owners, but they have the right to sell in order that they will recover the amount which is being loaned by the mortgagee or the pledgee. Okay. How about the price in a contract of sale? There are requisites, no? In order to be valid, the price must be real. Meaning, when at the perfection of the contract of sale, there is every intention on the part of the buyer to pay the price, and every expectation on the part of the seller to receive the price. As this is the value of the subject matter, he obligates to deliver to the buyer. The price must be in the money or its equivalent. So consideration for valid contract of sale can be the price or other valuable consideration. At the very least, a true contract of sale must have price as part of its consideration. Without the price, then that sale is simulated. Himo-himo lang. The price must be certain or ascertainable. Certain meaning it is expressed and agreed in terms of specific pesos. So Mona, if you see a deed of sale, the amount or the price or consideration is in bold letters. No? Then ascertainable by third persons or by the courts who will fix the price. No? So in cases where the third persons fix the price in bad faith or by mistake, so it will now the court who will fix the price. By reference to a definite day or particular exchange of market, this is in case of a stock or stocks, because stocks is always fluctuating, goes up and down. So how will you know the price? So it will be determined upon a certain definite time of the day or by reference to another certain thing. When it comes to antiques, no? Antiques or any kind of thing which is not in the market anymore. So this is the price requisites, no? It's real in money or its equivalent. The price must be certain or ascertainable. Okay. So what happens when there is a gross inadequacy of the price in a contract of sale? What is the effect? So mere inadequacy of the price does not affect the validity of the sale. So the sale is still valid, no? Let's say you have a property worth 2 million pesos and you only sold it for 1 million pesos. You lost 1 million pesos, no? Is the sale valid? According here, yes, it is valid. It does not affect the validity of the sale. But there are exceptions. First, when there is a fraud, when there's fraud, mistake, or undue influence, indicative of the defect in consent is present. So if one of the parties has been defrauded, or he is mistaken, or the buyer was, or the seller has been influenced unduly by his superior, maybe of somebody who is a manager, using his influence, or when it shows that the parties really intended a donation or some other act or contract. So instead of collecting 2 million, as I've said, the property is worth 2 million. So instead of collecting 2 million, okay, I will donate, because it's the church who is buying the property. Okay, I will accept 1 million pesos, and 1 million or the other half I will donate it to the church. And that happened, of course. No? That's a valid consideration. Okay, as far as simulation of contract, so if the price is simulated, meaning imo-imo lang, there's no actual consideration that is that happened, then the act may be shown to have been in reality a donation or some other act or contract. Okay, then it'd be valid. No, let's say for instance I have a property and I want to give it to my son, okay, or to my daughter. But before, this is only applicable before, because the donation, the tax rate for donations before is varies, no? It varies depending on the price or the value of the property. So it varies from 5% to 20%. So if the value of the property is very high, then you will fall on the 20% bracket. You pay donor tax, 20%. But in a contract of sale, there's a fixed tax of 6%, which is capital gains tax, plus documentary stamp tax of 1.5%. So you only pay, your son will only pay 7.5, or my daughter will only pay 7.5% tax. So in order to avoid payment of a higher tax, then we will forego donation. But instead, we'll make a contract of sale. But in actuality, there is no price or consideration. So we'll put amount in the contract of sale, but in actuality, there is no price involved because it is a donation. But the ultimate objective is to evade payment of higher taxes. Then in this case, the contract is valid, no? Even though there is no price paid by the buyer. And number two, in simulated, if the price is simulated, then if not, there is no donation, there's no intent of donation, then neither party had any intention whatsoever, then the amount will be paid. Otherwise, the sale is void. No? So there is no payment, sale is void. What is an example of this? I have a loan, let's say 10 million pesos with the bank or with certain person. Then my loan is already due and demandable, but I have no money to pay. But the lender, the money, knows that I own this property. And I'm afraid that the lender will foreclose or attach my property when he files a case. You know? So I'm afraid of taking away my property. I now transfer my property to the name of another person. Then we executed a contract of sale. So there is no price or consideration. The ultimate objective is to transfer the name of the property from my name to the name of another person in order that the property will not be attached by the lender. So is that valid contract? Then that valid is void. No? Falls under here, number two. Number three, if there is a real price, but what is stated in the contract is not the one intended to be paid, so this one is one relatively simulated, then this contract of sale is valid, but subject to reformation. So happens when the contract is not the one, let's say for instance, what is stated there instead of 10 million and the written amount in numbers only is missing 10. So what is reflected in the contract of sale is 1 million instead of 10 million, then it's not really an absolutely simulated, but relatively simulated, then it can be subjected to reformation. So pwede mausap, i-reform lang. Therefore, the contract is valid. Okay, next article 1474 of the Civil Code states that where the price cannot be determined in accordance with the preceding articles or in any other manner, the contract is inefficacious. So if it is undeterminable, so it is without effect. However, if the thing or any part thereof has been delivered to and appropriated by the buyer, he must pay a reasonable price therefore, because there is already delivery or partly delivery or part delivery. So what is a reasonable price is a question of fact dependent on the circumstances of each particular case. All right. So these are the stages in life of contract of sale: solicitation or negotiation stage. Offer is floated. There's an offer. Acceptance is floated, but they do not meet. The time and the parties indicate their interest, but no concurrence of offer and acceptance. So still negotiating. But once the concurrence of offer is of an acceptance is done, there is already concurrence of all requisites. Then there is a meeting of minds. Then that stage is perfection or the birth of a contract. Then consummation happens when the parties perform their respective undertakings, which is the buyer delivering the money and the seller delivering the subject matter. Okay, that ends part one of our course. And next time we will discuss option contract. So if you have questions, clarifications, or uh, concerns, you can email me, my Gmail account, Masaren and Masaren Law, or at my Facebook or MS Teams uh, chat box. Okay, this is your host of Professor Attorney Lyndon saying have a good day, everyone, and enjoy learning because wisdom is power.